Hi class, today's lesson will be from chapter 26. I'm sharing with you problem 4B from chapter 26. And what we're going to be looking at today are two different proposals that our company is thinking about investing in. We're going to evaluate these proposals and see which one of those that they should choose. So what we're going to be discussing today is the net present value method and also internal rate of return method analysis. We talked a little bit about net present value method in the last video that we did. In this problem, we're going to be looking at two different types of investments. We're going to be considering two TV shows, and they have given us the cash flows for each investment. So what you really need to know here is that one of the TV shows is going to be called After Hours. The other one is Sun Fun. And these are the net cash flows. When we're given net cash flows, this is what they're estimating that both of these TV programs are going to bring into this company in cash. When we're using cash flows, we also can use present value analysis. Therefore, they're going to ask us to calculate the net present value of each one of these investments. Because each cash flow in both of these investments are the same amount, they're equal amounts that we're expecting to receive over the life of this assets, which is going to be 4 years. Because they're equal annual cash flows, this is what allows us to use the present value of the annuity table. If these cash flows were not equal, if they were unequal, then we'd have to use the present value of the dollar table to calculate our present value. But in this case, they're equal amounts, so we can use this annuity table. After Hours is going to require an investment of $913,600, while Sun Fun requires an investment of $880,730. There's going to be no residual value that's left over from either project. So here's your present value of annuity table that they've given you. Notice that this table has table value amounts associated with it. And in part one, they want you to compute the net present value for each project, and they want you to use a rate of 10%. So this is what management has decided that they think that they can earn in interest. So 10% is what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking at this column right here. Now, to determine the net present value, we first need to know what the present value of all of the cash flows are for each one of these investments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10%. I'm going to go down the number of years in the life of this asset, which are 4. I'm going to go over to 10%, and you can see that there's a table value factor here of 3.17. I simply multiply 3.17 times the annual equal cash flow for After Hours is $320. So I'm going to take $320,000. So I'm going to take $320,000 and I'm going to multiply it by my table value amount, which is located in cell address C20. 3.17 is the table value amount. multiply it by 320,000, and that will give you the present value of the annual cash flows for after hours. We're going to do the same thing for Sun Fund, except Sun Fund's net annual cash flow amount is 290,000. So we're going to take 290,000 this time and multiply it by 3.17, because there's 4 years as a useful life in both of these investments. And that will give us a total present value for Sun Fund at 919,300. You're going to compare the present value of those cash flows with the amount that's to be invested. The amount to be invested was given to you. After hours requires an investment of 913,600, while Sun Fund requires an investment of 880,730. The difference between these is what we refer to as net present value. These amounts, if they're positive, represent that you're going to bring in more money than what you've invested in at the end of those 4 years. So in both of these situations, they're going to be okay investments. But obviously, if you're just looking at the net present value, after hours is going to be your better investment for this type of evaluation. Now, what companies do is they subject these investments to a lot of different types of evaluations. Some that we've talked about previously are to find a average rate of return on the investment. You might also determine the cash payback method, which we haven't talked about, and we're going to in a future video. So look out for that in the future. But using present value analysis can also help us to evaluate proposals. In part B, they want us to compute a present value index for each project. And to calculate the present value index, you need to know the formula. And so I've given you the formula here to calculate the present value index. We're going to take the present value of the annual cash flows, which we've already calculated in part 1. So you can see here that I just brought these two down. This is the same present value. It was using 10% at 4 years. And you would multiply this table value factor times the annual cash flow to get the present value of the annual cash flows. We're going to divide this amount, this present value amount, by the amount to be invested. This sign right here is a divide sign. We're going to divide it by the amount to be invested. For after hours, it was 913,600. For Sun Fund, it was 880,730. So when you find the when you divide this into this, it will give you a present value index. The higher the present value index, the better off you're going to be. So the present value index for this company is $1.11. That's the present value index, or $1.40, $1.04, excuse me, for the present value index for Sun Fund. So you can use the present value index to help you to determine what the amount should be. So we're simply dividing the amount invested into the dollar amount for the formula here. And what that will do is that will change this. It shouldn't be a dollar amount for the present value index. It's just a number amount here. So I've got a dollar sign on there. Evidently, I've chosen currency and I shouldn't have. It's just a number. that's what should be there. So disregard the fact that I think I even verbalized it. I said it was a dollar amount, but it's not. It's just a number amount here. But the higher the number, the better off it is. Notice in both of these, it's above 100%, and that's because the net present value was more than what was to be invested. The present value was more than the amount of the investment, and so this would have to be above 100 here. If it goes below 100, then it's probably not going to be a good investment for you to make within your company. So still, both of these look like they're pretty good investments, but it looks like after hours is producing the most amount of the net present value and the largest present value index. So after hours would be my choice. In part 2, they want you to determine the internal rate of return for each project by and if required, round your present value factor answers to 3 decimal places and the internal rate of return to the nearest percent. First of all, they want you to compute the present value factor for an annuity. And again, because these cash payments that they gave us, the cash flow here is equal in amounts. This is why we use the annuity table here. But to determine the present value factor, that's if we don't have a table to use, we can still determine a present value factor for these. But there's a formula for doing that. And so we're going to take the amount to be invested, which was given amounts for after hours and also for Sun Fund. These were given amounts. They were given in the problem right here. And so we start with the amount to be invested. And what we're going to do is just simply divide it by the equal annual net cash flows that we know that we're going to have. So for after hours, the amount was 320,000, and for Sun Fund, it was 290,000. Both of these amounts are given. So you simply divide the equal annual net cash flows into the amount to be invested, and that gives you the present value factor. So they're kind of showing you how they have come up with these present value factors up here. Notice that ours was 3.17 as a present value factor that they came up with here. But we're coming up with one that's 2.855. So we'd look on our table and we should have 2.855 somewhere right here. It is for 4 years. And you see that we actually earned 15% off of this investment. So that's kind of what they're telling you there. But this first part is the present value factor. I want you to make sure you know that these things right here that they've come up with, that they gave you before, are what we refer to as the present value factors. And this is just showing you how they could calculate the present value factor if you know what the amounts invested and if you know the equal annual net cash flows, you can come up with a table value amount. So in the next part, they want you to actually determine the internal rate of return using the present value of the annuity table above. And here's how we do this. I put this down here. I'm going to make this bold, by the way, so you'll know to look at that and study this, because this is how you're getting the internal rate of return. Look at the present value. Look on the present value of the annuity table. That's the only one they've got listed up here. But make sure you see in the title that it's the annuity table that you're using, because sometimes they'll give you the present value of the lump sum table, and you want to make sure you're using the annuity table on this. And then you're going to go down the table to the life of the investment in years. So the life of the investment in years, you'll remember, is 4 years. So you're going to go down your table to 4 years. These are the present value factors that you're looking at. You'll remember that you calculated based on your amount to be invested and the annual cash flows. We came up with a present value factor for after hours of 2.855. So we go down the table 4 years for the life of the asset over to 2.855 and go all the way up. Do you see here where we've chosen 15%? That 15% is our internal rate of return. That's what we think that this investment is going to bring us if we actually get the annual cash flows that we've estimated. So for Sun Fund, we're going to go down 4 years on the table, and we're going to look for this table value amount of 3.037. So we're going to get as close as we can to that. Right here it is. And you scroll up to the top and you can see that it's bringing a 12% internal rate of return. So the best choice between these two is going to be after hours, because in each one of these situations, after hours outperformed Sun Fund. So in part 3, they wanted you to fill in the blank, and it says the net present value index, and internal rate of return all indicate that after hours, this was the blank here that they wanted you to fill in. TV show is a better financial opportunity compared to Sun Fund TV show. Although both investments do meet the minimum return criteria of 10% that was originally established here in the first requirement. So both of these investments meet that 10% requirement, but after hours is going to perform better, they think, than Sun Fund. So the choice most likely, if you just went on mathematical calculations, is after hours. And so that's all I want to talk to you about today. And I'll see you next time when we do our last video for the semester. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.